Welcome to Mastering Essential Guitar Techniques, a beginner's guide. We'll explore some must-know techniques that will set you on the path to becoming a guitar master. First up, fretting the notes properly. When you're playing the guitar, you want a good, clean musical sound. Put your finger closer to the right side of the fret, right next to the metal bar. That's where it's in tune. Over here, it's not as in tune as it is in here. You can hear this one's a little flatter. And then what you want to do is push just enough pressure on it so you don't get any buzz. Hear that buzz? A little more pressure, no buzz. If I let go of the pressure, it starts to buzz. So you push just hard enough not to get any buzz. If you push too hard, it goes sharp, and that doesn't sound good either. Now I will note, if you play like an A chord like this, you can't always get your fingers right in the right spot, like if you were to bar like this. So there's a sweet spot on the guitar where it's right in tune, and that's where you want to be. Next up is strumming. As a beginner guitar player, you're probably strumming the strings way too hard, so keep that in mind for starters here. Here's how you do it properly. What we don't want to do is take our pick to the side and scrape like this. It seems like most beginner players kind of scrape the strings. Take your pick and make it more perpendicular, so it's like this, not this, but this, and then if you strum, get more of a bell tone, more note and less consonant, more of the pitch and less of the percussive sound. Next thing is, when you're strumming, there's a circumference to your fretboard. The fretboard is rounded, so we want to strum like this and then like this. Not necessarily like this, but like this. So if I play a chord, sounds nice and musical. Next up, chord transitions. Moving between two chords is one of the hardest things for beginner guitar players to do. Here's what we're going to do. Let's say we're going to play this E chord first. What we want to do is what I call flow to the floor. There's an order of operations. Generally, when you play the guitar, we strum in the direction of the floor. So we want to add our fingers moving towards the floor like this. One string at a time. Get a nice, smooth, clean sound and strum. See how I did that? I'm adding my fingers in. My fingers are getting a nice clean sound for each one as I move in the direction of the floor. If you can't get those notes to sound out and your fingers are blocking them, you might have to kick your wrist out a little bit more and get your fingers to come at a right angle to the strings. And as you get better, you can relax your hand and your knuckles become more supple, and this will get easier. If this is a challenge for you to get these notes to sound out for a basic chord, take a look at the lesson on the channel right here, which will be a deeper dive into how to do this. You'll find a bunch of strategies to be able to get your notes to sound out on the chords. The next thing is chord transitions, going from one chord to another. So let's say I play the E chord, then I want to go to the A chord. I'm going to go back and forth. Well, that may not be easy for you yet, so here's how we're going to do this. The first thing is we're going to do it with only one string first. 1, 2, 3, 4, doing whole notes, 4 beats for each one. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try half notes next. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. And then quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So once I get good at that, I'm going to try 2 strings instead. The bottom 2 strings are like this. 2, 3, switch. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to try half notes next. 1, 2, and switch in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to try quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say I did that with 3 strings and then ultimately 4 strings. At that point, you're getting to the point where you can play chords. 2, 3, 4. You can transition back and forth, flowing to the floor. You see how it's a process of growth as we do this. So if you can't do that yet, and that's really a struggle for you, there's a lesson on the channel right here which will go into great detail on how to make these smooth chord transitions happen. The next thing is this thing I call the dancer. So the dancer is to take your hand and make it flow into the next chord up and down like this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're not worried about what it sounds like. We're just worried about the smooth transition. Now I'm going to do it with half notes. 2, and switch in. and switch in, 2, and switch in. Now quarter notes, 2, 3, 4 switch, 1, 2, 3, 4 switch, 1, 3, 4 switch, 1, 2, 3, 4. What we're trying to do is get smooth transitions between each chord. If you look at my hand, if I have 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, a half a beat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or a 16th note, which is a quarter of a beat, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Each time I'm doing the same smooth transition between them. So that video that I was talking about gets into something I call the sneeze chord and beyond. We should do all these things before we ever worry about strumming patterns. It gets to be really confusing when you're trying to strum right away. So smooth chord transitions are all about doing this in a stepwise fashion. And take a look at that video to take this to another level. If you're enjoying today's video, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. Next up is going to be bending. So nothing probably sounds worse than bending out of tune. Here's how we do this. We can start with a half step first and then a whole step. If I play this note right here, say I play the C note on the 13th fret of the B string, I'm going to play the B note on the 12th fret of the B string. I'm going to push that up a half step like this. Exactly the same pitch. It's my reference note, and I'm bending that far. You'll notice my fingers are lined up 1, 2, 3 in a row, and I'm pushing up towards the sky. Like that. The skinny strings push up, the fat strings push down. Now once you get good at that, you can try that with all different fingers. Now let's try this. I'm going to play the 12th fret of the high E string. And I'm going to play the 15th fret of the B string, and I'm going to make those sound the same. Now, what happens is it takes some time to get confident with doing that. You notice I'm lining my fingers up 1, 2, 3 like this. These two fingers are bending together because strength in numbers is better. You can go slowly at first to get to that pitch. And eventually, you'll be able to nail that without actually having to kind of work up to that. There's probably 50 or 100 different ways to bend the strings, like infinite amount of different ways to bend the strings. Different players have different things they do, but basically you're either going to bend directly to that note immediately or slowly work yourself up to that note and then hit the pitch when you get there. So when you practice this, you can try this note and then bend that string. You can also try the 12th fret of the B string and bend the 14th fret of the G string the same way. Eventually, you can play some licks with that. If you want to take this even further, there's a lesson on the channel right here on how to bend the strings properly, which will be a deeper dive into what I was just talking about, and it'll take it a lot further. Next up, let's talk about sliding. Much like a bend, I can slide instead. I can slide up, I can slide down, I can slide with different fingers, different strings. Lots of different ways to slide as well. If I slide slowly, or I can go really fast, something called a grace note. So it's kind of like much faster. It's kind of a medium speed also. Sliding is a cool way to add some feel and some emotion to your playing. What I'm doing right now is I'm playing out of something called the pentatonic scale. The first lesson on how to solo with the pentatonic scale is right here on the channel. In fact, there's probably 75 lessons on pentatonic scales on the channel, so check that out. If you want to take that sort of improvisational concept a bit further to learn how to slide and bend and put that stuff into context so it sounds like music. Next up is vibrato. This is probably the most expressive technique there is, and maybe the most important for developing your own fingerprint on the guitar. When you combine it with bending, it's probably the best sound there is on the guitar. It's absolutely gorgeous. What we want to do is play a note, but we're going to wiggle the note above and below the pitch. So picture a dolphin jumping up and down above the water. We want to keep the pitch even. We don't want to sound like a spring being sprung. So what you do is rotate your wrist like this. It's called supination. Rotate our wrist. And when we do that, our finger goes up and down like this. So what you do is vibrate your wrist and have your fingertip go above and below the pitch. We can do a thin vibrato, We can do a wide vibrato. We can do a fast vibrato or a slow vibrato, or a combination of any of those for that matter. Now, I will mention on the high E string, sometimes we can't do that same kind of vibrato because there's not enough room to do that. So what we can do is make a small circle, like a violin would go back and forth, that or a circle. Vibrato is beautiful. B.B. King's vibrato, his thumb's actually off the guitar like this, and he goes like this. So I'm actually going, woo, 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 woo. So this is kind of where you get your expressive sound. So if I go fast, slow, wide, thin, what we want to do for sure though is not go out of tune. Now when you band a new vibrato together, see, it's very beautiful. Vibrato is where you get your own sound from. Like Brian May's vibrato is to die for. That his left hand is absolutely gorgeous. This is where you kind of develop your feel, your own thing, when you work out your own way of wiggling the strings. But the technique has to be vibrato that's in tune. There is a heavy metal vibrato as well, by the way, that goes up an entire pitch, like this. So that's something too, but right now we're just worried about like the simple vibrato. Next on our list is dampening. Dampening the strings is keeping them quiet when you're not playing other strings. So for example, if I play this and I don't dampen anything, all the other strings are ringing out. So what we want to do is cover the strings we're not playing so everything's nice and quiet. So what I do, my right hand's covering these lower strings. My first finger of my left hand's covering the higher strings. If I play these notes, this is covered, and this is covered. And it's okay if you do this and you get a little bit of dampening on the notes themselves. That's okay. It's called pizzicato. So some players do that all the time anyways. It's kind of built into their style. So the same thing applies when you're strumming too. But your dampening is all going to be your left hand because your right hand is now strumming. So we have three techniques called the choke, the chick, and the chang. The choke is when you cover the strings you're not playing. If I do an octave, I'm choking the other strings. You see the other strings are covered. The chick is that, and chang is the chord that results after the chick. That's dampening. Dampening is really important so you don't get a lot of extra noise. I call it guitar manners. Keep your guitar nice and quiet and be mannerly and make your guitar sound good and not like too crazy and out of control. And last but not least is going to be palm muting. Palm muting sounds like this. What I'm doing is taking my palm and putting it right here on the lower string so I can go like this. If it sounds like thwappa-dappa, you're too far to the right. It should sound like thunka-dunka. Thunka-dunka. Palm muting is important for lots of different styles of guitar playing. Not just heavy metal or hard rock, but just in general. So this is a technique you want to practice and get down. You can do it with open strings to get good at it, and you'll hear that across the entire spectrum of guitar playing. Thank you so much for watching today's lesson on developing these essential beginner guitar techniques. For a deeper dive, you'll find videos on all these different topics on the lesson channel. All right, catch you next time.